Hi everyone, I'm Marko. I'm marketing lead and lead Pepe aficionado at LI.FI. We're a cross-chain bridge index aggregator currently supporting 17 chains through 13 bridges and 30 dexes so far.
And I'm Dan Thomson, CMO at InsurAce, which is a DeFi insurance protocol.
So to start with, we're going to talk about insuring cross-chain transactions, first through a framework that we use internally at LI.FI, and then together with InsurAce, we build a product for users called Bridge Insurance. So to start off, we can kind of categorize different bridges we have integrated in three distinct categories. First are the safest one, or native bridges, like Arbitrum Bridge or Polygon POS. Then we have bridges with hybrid verification that are across Connects Hop, and then the bridges with external verification that can be considered a bit less secure because you're basically trusting a third-party validator to verify the transactions, but they're faster and cheaper, so people love to use them. And within those categories, we recognize kind of the four main categories of bridge risk that we need to kind of look into and categorize for ourselves to see, do we even integrate a bridge? So we separated it in bridge architecture risk, which is basically censorship resistance, validation mechanism, stuff like that. Bridge implementation risk, testing audits, bug bounties. Then we have the bridge operational risk, which we're looking, how are private keys protected? Who can seize operations and how independent they are? Code-based diversity, and stuff like that. And then lastly, team background and track record, where we basically meet the team in person, check with investors, check with audit companies, check how fast they respond to queries and stuff like that. On top of that, we have a full-time research team that's basically dedicated to analyzing and assessing third-party infrastructure and educating the team and kind of developing the routing algorithm based on these parameters. But the main point to kind of bring across is that aggregation in itself inherently mitigates bridge risk, and we do that through basically creating fallback options and reducing dependency on a single bridge provider, and also kind of minimizing the contagion in case of a bridge hack, which is super important. And then on top of that, aggregating different bridges, because they have various strengths and weaknesses, we can combine those strengths to kind of effectively limit or effectively fix their limitations, so the user in the end can have a very seamless UX and a simple process. But sometimes even that is not enough. So because of it, together with InsurAce, we've built a B2C product that users can basically opt into to ensure every transaction they're doing. It's for the insiders in the industry, it's not really that much needed because the user is never at risk. It's always the LPs or the treasury of the company, but the user always kind of feels safer knowing that whatever happens, they can get their money back. And Dan will talk more about that.
Cool. Thanks, Marko. So I'm here to talk about the solution we've come up to essentially protect users who are using the LI.FI and Jumper Exchange Bridge. InsurAce is a DeFi insurance protocol, as I mentioned before. It's built onto 4 different chains. It's one of the leading insurance protocols in the space at the moment. We've covered around 350 million worth of assets across 150 different protocols built across 20 different public chains. The typical type of risks we cover are smart contract risk. We look at stablecoin depeg risk. We also cover things like custodian risk and IDO risks. And with our latest risk cover, which is bridge cover, as I think everyone who's used a bit of DeFi knows that bridges are a bit risky at times, or at least you have a moment or two where you're wondering whether or not you're going to get the transaction coming through. So that's why we've been working with LI.FI now for around about a year, coming up on a year, to actually build out this product. Historically, we've paid out the largest amount in the space, which was around about 12 million to the UST victims. We've paid out on FTX, we paid out on EULA before I got refunded, and a few other smart contract hacks, things like elephant money. So where we've come through with this product to basically figure out a way to make arguably one of the riskier riskier aspects of DeFi safer for everyone. So we've been spent, like I said, around about a year to actually create a product that can guarantee that your transaction makes it to the other side, whether or not you're just using LI.FI as a bridge or whether or not you're using it as a bridge and a DEX at the same time. Now, we've been building this so far with tremendous success. The stats on here are a little bit behind, as we're actually up to over 8,500 transactions, 1.5 million covered, and across 16 or 17 blockchains, which for a first month is incredible. It means that we're actually protecting people at the moment of transactions up to about $200,000, which is about to get increased up to $1 million. So that means that anyone who wants to opt in for their insurance can do so very, very quick and easy. The way we do this is by analyzing the risk across different bridges and across the aggregator itself. That risk is then calculated and put into a risk algorithm which allows us to price it effectively and also allow for a certain amount of capacity to be given to the transactions going across the bridge and DEX at any one time. This is the way it looks as an opt-in at the bottom of the bridge. So you go to jumper.exchange, you test out the bridge, so you pick which starting coin and chain you want to bridge from, and you pick a destination token and chain. At the bottom, it will, across 13 different DEXs, 13 different bridges, sorry?
13 bridges.
13 bridges. Across 13 different bridges, it gives you the option to add on the insurance for, pennies on the dollar, and as simple as possible. And I think that's what makes, really, really great partnerships in this space. So integrating with LI.FI in this way just makes sure that you've got, and again, I think the numbers are still a bit older. This is how fast it's growing. We've been updating this slide a few times in the past couple of weeks. But yeah, so that's how fast it's growing. And it actually shows how Web3 partnerships should be. It shows that, to make it work, you've got to have some, real use case for solving a real problem. I think in this space, there's a lot of times where we solve problems that don't necessarily exist. So actually to have created something that has had such an incredible reception so fast is such a great thing for the space and for the people who use it. So that's what we've done. We've created an insurance product that actually protects people against real risks, which earns real revenues for both protocols, which can generate real yields for anyone who is then essentially underwriting the process through their staking tokens with the InsurAce app, which is how the capacity is provided in the first place, which ends up making crypto safer for everyone. So all you need to do now to actually test this out is head over to jumper.exchange, which is where the bridge can be located, and test it out for yourself. Add connect your wallet, select your starting token and starting chain, add in your destination chain and token, and opt in for the insurance cost. And that's how we protect this industry. We've been very, very fast, much faster than we thought. So we're going to open up to any questions if there are some.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're assessing the risks of the individual bridges. How do you go about that process, and what range have you observed in assessing different solutions?
From a internal LI.FI framework, or as an insurance product as InsurAce?
Perhaps both. It would be good to get perspectives.
Yeah, so for us, it's basically all of the different categories within the specific category. So for example, the architecture has, we're looking at validation mechanisms, censorship risk, stuff like that. So all of it has like a given metric that we've just arbitrarily, in a way, placed for each specific spectrum of where they are in it. And it's basically just a math model in the end that says, okay, they're in these categories of safety. Like in reality, they're all safe, right? Like they're not really unsafe, but we still have to kind of position it in a way where we're mainly a B2B developer company, so we have to categorize it in a way that if a company comes and says, hey, like we're super into security, like super into decentralization, trustlessness, well, okay, like, this is the kind of package of bridges that fit into that category. You can move out the rest. We know that user will never, in the end, be harmed because that, whichever project harms the user in the end, it's not going to exist anymore because everything's kind of trust-based. But that's kind of how we go about it. And we build it as new technology comes. We just add things into the model to be able to be effective with it and fast. And you from...
Yeah, so once it's actually been added onto the LI.FI aggregator, the way that we would then calculate the risk, so already you're looking at the safer bridges and indexes out there. Then when we actually start looking at the risk, we actually look at the data, the history, the transactions, and you can see how many incidences of transactional failures there have been on that particular bridge, dex, anything really. Whether or not there's been a significant amount of slippage, whether there's been historic amounts lost due to chain failures, chain pausing, block reorganizations, pretty much anything, right? So the amazing thing is that we work in the space where the data is available if you have the capacity to process it. And that's what we do. So we then churn that data, come up with an insurance, essentially algorithm that allows us to, and our actuaries to calculate the risk on that and therefore work out how much we can charge and whether or not that risk is too high or too low for a certain bridge and dex. So with LI.FI, luckily, we do actually cover every single one because their checks are good enough for us that every bridge they list is of such a good quality and safety standard that it's not something we've had to, flag up as maybe, there's loads of other bridging solutions out there that are too risky, but they won't touch it, and by, I guess, extension, we won't. And even if there was one that we had a few questions about, we look at the team, we look at the investors, even the community, the smart contracts, the code, everything. If there's something that's there, we actually want to work with those protocols and those teams to improve them to actually get to where they need to get to. Because I think it's across the board, you look at different protocols out there and they are, one of the first things everyone thinks to get done is an audit, right? And someone's going to have to help me out here. Which was the one that got with a CERTIC audit last week? And there's another. There was 2 in 2 weeks, I think, that had problems. So even with an audit, right? Even with relatively good audit, don't get me wrong, CERTIC don't do a bad job. They just do a lot more than others. So a lot more CERTIC statistically also have problems down the line. Protocols. So the narrative is that every new protocol should have an audit, should have a bug bounty. Same with bridges, dexes, everything. What they don't always automatically say is, is there insurance available on it as well? Because we've done that extra layer of protection, and that really should form part of the narrative. And luckily, we can do that with LI.FI and the bridge aggregator here.
I didn't catch the very beginning of the presentation. Maybe you already answered, but I will ask you anyway. Do you have just to put you in a context, what's the status of your competition regarding your insurance? Can you give us just the landscape so we can see how competitive you are? Thanks.
So basically in the aggregation field of bridges, there's 2 main players. There's Socket and LI.FI. Socket has basically announced a bridge risk cover in December. To this day, it's still not launched. They announced 2 weeks ago that they're starting the beta program. So basically, the users can whitelist themselves to get access to early features, but it's still not live yet, so we don't really know how it's going to work. So we're all kind of eagerly waiting to see, but I'm super happy that they're doing it as well, because one of the main reasons as well is if you look at the volume, similarly to aggregators and dexes in kind of on-chain field, majority of volume still usually goes through like Uniswap and stuff like that. And in bridges, it's even more than that. So aggregators get very, very small percentage of volume. And given that now aggregators will actually have that added layer of protection, it might incentivize users to actually move away from using a specific bridge and always going to an aggregator.
And from the insurance side, when we're the same with Socket, they're working with Risk Harbor, but as it stands at the moment, we're the only ones providing the coverage, and we only provide it to LI.FI. So despite several requests, so we're funneling everyone through LI.FI, and so that kind of keeps the competition again, it's not. I find it really difficult when you talk about competition in insurance in this space because it's so needed, right? So having other people provide these covers, making this whole space safer, will only be better for the space as a whole. It only encourages more people to come in because it becomes safer for them. So even when we talk about competition for us, we want other people to provide similar products. We want people to make these bridges and dexes as safe as possible. We want all protocols to get as safe and have insurance options on them, whether it's on a B2B level or on an end user level. And so, even though currently it is only us, and yeah, Socket and Risk Harbor might launch something soon, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and what we're doing is great, and we're just now analyzing the data to improve it and make it as better and cost effective as possible so that more people can use it. There are concerns around pricing sometimes. There's always concerns about whether or not the insurance actually pays out. I think that's a general concern with insurance across the board, not just in crypto, but actually having everything on chain and transparent does go a long way to solving that concern about transparency and payouts, because people can see that the capital is there ready to pay out. If you're making a bridge transaction for $100,000 and you are not sure it's going to go through, but you're not sure if you get paid out if it doesn't make it, you can literally go to our app and check that the capacity for $100,000 is there at that time and see it all on chain if you want to check it. We're completely transparent about that. And that goes a long way beyond what existing and historical insurance companies have done. And that's why I think it's such a cool product to have in the space.
Do you see the possibility that traditional insurance companies, like for example Allianz and stuff, step into this place and try to develop the services and products to compete you?
Yeah. So we actually have a lot of regular conversations with all the big insurance companies. They have limitations. They can't hold crypto. They can't transact in crypto or accept it. But there are a lot of efficiencies we can do. Everything from and actually help them to improve their services. So everything from claims assessment, claims processing, through to their auditing services. All of these things are so antiquated in that space, and we're trying to work with them as much as possible to have that, and to such an extent we're actually getting a licensed regulated entity out of Bermuda for that, to actually help those different entities, as well as the service businesses around it, the auditors, the accountants, even the legal teams, issuing policies and claims on chain, as well as payments, just will streamline so much of their hassle. And even then, I'm currently going through a classic case of insurance claim at the moment for a stolen bag from November with a laptop and whatever else. I'm still having to go back and forth with an insurance company, and it's frustrating because I know where this technology can be. We paid out 12 million to UST victims last year. Entire process was done within a month. And that was the largest case of payout in the space of its kind. That would have taken months, if not years, in historical markets. So yeah, I think there's a massive improvement they can make. A few people in their companies know this, and when we actually go to talk at those conferences, it's really interesting because the conversations we're having is like what we'd have at crypto conferences 3 or 4 years ago, right? They're slowly catching up. I think they're just about understanding what a smart contract is. So it's taking a bit of time, but they will get there.